from what I've seen when it comes to sleep paralysis, it's like a buildup. You have all these responsibilities stacking and stacking on top of each other, and once it clogs up and blackens, it becomes this terrible, terrible figure that you have no way of describing. Hi, my name is Christian Gonzalez, and I suffer with sleep paralysis. When I first started making this film, I wanted to talk about what it meant to have sleep paralysis. And I'm not talking about just the feeling of not being able to move. No, I'm talking about the feeling where you're being watched and you're seeing things and hearing things that don't usually happen. And I wanted to see if there was any more others who have experienced the same thing I did, then maybe I would find some kind of answer. I had this one sleep paralysis dream a while back. I'm gonna say at least at June of last year. It was probably the worst, most terrifying sleep paralysis I've ever had. Because it just didn't make sense, or at least I don't understand it. And I know I'm a terrible sleeper. I got bad sleeping habits, but I still couldn't understand the things I saw that day. I first started by finding somebody who's a little bit more professionally knowledgeable of this topic. I was hesitant at first on adding somebody who is a bit more credible, since I wasn't really sure where I would find someone like that. But luckily I found somebody here at UHCL, the University of Houston Clear Lake, named Christopher P. Ward. Pass you this mic.
My name is Chris Ward. I am the chair of psychology at the University of Houston Clear Lake. I did my doctorate degree at the University of Mississippi and postdoctoral fellowship at Harvard Medical School. My main area is in neuroscience. Specifically, I'm looking at the neuroscience of sleep and sleep disorders. I first got interested in doing sleep as research as an undergraduate. I was taking a course from a professor who did sleep research, and during the course he talked about it. It sounded really interesting. So I then saw about volunteering in his research lab, and ever since then I've found it, just really fascinating. And one of the things that most fascinated me about sleep is that we still don't understand the very basics of it. We still can't answer the question why every night we go to sleep. So a sleep disorder is anything that disrupts normal sleep. And there's lots of different sleep disorders, and they're both like primary and secondary sleep disorders. So it's a lot of complications to it. But, sometimes we have physiological challenges that impair our sleep. We take, for instance, something like obstructive sleep apnea, where a person's throat actually collapses during the night and they stop breathing, and so they keep waking up throughout the night, often not even knowing that they're doing it because they just kind of arouse out of deep sleep. And so they're deprived of deep sleep. Therefore, they think they've slept 8 hours a night, but really they barely slept at all, and they don't understand why they're so tired. And it really usually isn't until a bed partner says, "Hey, do you know you stop breathing when you're asleep?" Then you have things that are more severe, like narcolepsy, which is actually a neurodegenerative disorder, that you have certain neurons in the brain that start dying off that produces the chemical called orexin. And then you have things like insomnia, which is very common. This can be caused by a variety of things, whether we're talking about it's the first night you slept in a new place, like in a hotel room, or because you're in drug withdrawal, or because you have poor sleep habits, or that you have these learned behaviors that has made your sleep poor. So all kinds of things that disrupt normal sleep. If you are at the point where excessive daytime sleepiness interferes with your normal life, then that could be a sign. Now, we always have to put a caveat. Students are always sleepy. College students especially usually have atypical schedules between classes starting at different times on different days, and you're fitting in part-time jobs and you're doing all these kind of things. College students are always kind of outliers of the sleepiness. But for people who have more established routines, if they are having this excessive daytime sleepiness, they might have a sleep disorder. Or if you lay in bed and it takes you more than 20 minutes to fall asleep, there might be something going on. Sleep isn't a one thing. There's actually multiple types of sleep that occurs during the night. We have what we call REM sleep and non-REM sleep. So REM stands for rapid eye movement sleep, and non-REM stands for non-rapid eye movement sleep. So REM sleep, we kind of usually associate that with dream sleep. That's actually kind of a misnomer. You could actually have a dream during any part of sleep. But if I was monitoring a person and I noticed that they were in rapid eye movement sleep, you can know this because of what the name of it is. You can see the person's eyes underneath their eyelids darting back and forth during that. If I woke a person up out of REM sleep, about 80%, and asked them, hey, were you dreaming? About 80% of the time they'll say, yeah, I was dreaming. So that's why we kind of associate REM sleep with dream. So during that REM sleep, we actually have muscle paralysis that occurs from the neck down. So during that REM sleep paralysis that you have, sometimes people wake up out of that. And that's what sleep paralysis is that you have woken up, but your brain mechanisms that cause that paralysis from the neck down hasn't switched out of REM sleep yet. This is typically made worse with sleep deprivation and with high levels of stress. So once again, a college student is somebody who could very well experience this if you've been pulling a lot of all-nighters because you're getting assignments or studying done, or you're working as at a restaurant or a bar or something, and you're working till 2 a.m. So your sleep might be very disrupted. School or finances or whatever, you might have a high amount of stress, and so that can actually make that worse. Usually, once a person gets more sleep when they're less stressed, they'll usually go away. It is a scary experience. I've experienced it myself. It is you wake up and you can't move your body. You don't know what's going on. So it in itself can be stressful. And then some people even develop some insomnia because they'll have fear of sleeping for fear of having this. So once again, you can kind of get in this cycle where poor sleep can lead to this. And so sometimes that fear that you can develop can actually kind of make your sleep worse, therefore makes the sleep paralysis worse.
The more I talk with him, the more I realize that it's hard to find people who have experienced the same thing I have. What he experienced, or at least what he told me he remembers, is just knowing it, the feeling of it, the feeling of dread and fear. It's exactly what I felt. And after I had that talk with him, I decided to go find some college students. Because for me, sleep paralysis really started when I first started college. When it just comes to school, I always put 100% into that. And there were days where I procrastinate, or days I need to stay up to finish a project. I would go to school with maybe 1 hour, maybe even less of sleep. So I decided that maybe it would be cool to find college students to see, because I'm sure there are many college students who have experienced sleep troubles, whether it's not getting enough sleep because of assignments, or whether they have developed some kind of sleeping conditions like sleep apnea, or maybe even sleep paralysis if I'm lucky enough. So I talked with 3 college students who I thought would give me some useful information.
My name is Princeton.
Eduardo Ibarra.
I'm Sebastian Sebesta. I am currently in a master's course here at UHCL.
I'm in my 3rd semester now in a graduate program. I'm majoring in digital media.
Sort of a little tired because I had an early morning shift today, so I've had lots of sleeping struggles. It's hard whenever you're a procrastinator. It's like you always say you're going to do your assignments early or get started, but you don't end up starting until like the night before, and you're sort of like staying up the night before to do because you don't want to, because it's better to submit something than to submit nothing. And it's like just the fact that worriness, the anxiety of I might be too late is what also may keep me up.
I don't sleep on time. I don't wake up on time. I don't really have a schedule. I just sleep when I'm sleepy.
So you wouldn't really say the responsibilities of college kind of like hinder
Yeah, sometimes yes, because me personally, I like waiting for the deadline. I don't like doing my stuff like in advance. Stress of finishing it and submitting it, so sometimes that keeps me up awake.
Yeah, it's not really a time management problem. It's more just like, again, I was able to get that stuff done. It was just the amount of it that I had to do, and that stuff that just came in that was completely out of my control. Because another thing that probably is also important is that I have autism, and part of the thing with me is like I set my schedule up in like weeks in advance, and if something happens that's out of my control or I can't control, it just does not go well and just adds more stress to me.
People just think sleeping's easy. You just gotta like lay down in bed and that's it. But for me personally, and I'm sure for some people, it's not that simple. You know, it's like I mentioned, you just got a lot going on in like your mind. And when you don't get enough sleep, so people resort to like drinking energy drinks, which college students do all the time, but doctors always say it's not healthy for you. Maybe you just take one every week, but not every morning.
I just feel like what is going to happen the next minute, or if I don't do it, what is going to happen the next day. So that pressure sometimes keeps me up, but then I just try to finish it as fast as possible.
Do you know if you had any sleep paralysis episodes?
Not really.
I think I have this vivid memory of I'm looking up at the ceiling and then I'm conscious, but it's like you're saying my body can't move. The covers on top of you are like, at first I thought the covers are so heavy that you can't move. I think I had this instant thought where I wanted to scream for help for some reason, and it's like I can't scream because the weight of my blanket is like pushing down on me on my lungs. And then again, I didn't see that as like worrying or anything. I just thought of that, and then I woke up and I just totally forgot all about it.
One that was 2 years ago, where I woke up, I was facing my window. I couldn't move it or anything, and all I could see out of the window was just a shadowy figure just staring at me. And the only thing that I could make out with it is that it looked like my brother, technically stepbrother. It looked like my stepbrother, and he was just staring at me, and I just couldn't move, and all I could hear is just within my ears, just, you know how your ears ring? It just started getting louder and louder until it kind of hurt, and then he just faded away, and then I was able to move again. And second time, a year later, when I used to have a TV in my room, this is the reason why I don't have it anymore, is I woke up sleep paralysis again. I was like kind of on my back, just like kind of like looking over to the TV, and all of it was just on. It was just static, and all I heard was just static getting louder and louder, again hurting my ears, and it was just on. I couldn't do anything, and then it just shut off, and then I woke up. But the TV was off. The TV was still off, like no matter what. It was just in my head. All I could just see was static.
I guess I should talk about that one episode that I had. The whole reason this film is happening. First, I guess I should give some context, is that I was going on this trip with some friends. We decided to go to Tennessee, to the Smoky Mountains National Park. And most of us decided to drive there. And lo and behold, I volunteered to drive. And I don't know if you guys know, but driving from Texas, it's a good 16-hour drive. The first driving in was fine. Driving back, I drove for 9 hours. And I was very tired. And by the time I got home and I put all my stuff away, I ate, I showered, I was ready to at least take a nap. It was during the afternoon when I first got back from the trip. In my room layout, I have 2 of these turtle tanks with these lights on. I didn't feel like turning them off. I just felt like going to bed, and I didn't even feel like turning the fan on because it gets pretty hot in my room. I just was tired. I remember how it first started, as it felt like I was watching myself, but I was somehow in another room. It was like I had a camera, or I took it out my eyes and put it someplace else for me to watch myself. Like I was watching from a camera POV, much like this. I could see in my expression that I felt fearful. I can feel that something was watching me. I could hear a sort of rattling noises. At that point, things started to get really weird, where the noises got louder and I could see shapes of figures that looked almost humanoid reaching from across the floor. I figured out that I'm in this layout of my own home, but like I'm watching like a security camera from each corner, but I see myself walking past, but just in some of the corners, I see a figure. The lighting was normal at first, like as it typically was in my room, but I noticed some redness starting to appear once in a while. At some point, I realized that I was dreaming, and I needed to wake up. I felt fearful, I felt dread, I just wanted to get out. Something that always happens when I have sleep paralysis is that once I realize I'm dreaming, it's a lot harder to get up. I just remember being in my room. Everything looks familiar. From the turtle tanks, from where my bed placement is. I was sleeping on my back, which I don't typically do, and I could see my body from looking down. I couldn't move, but I wanted to. But somehow I was able to turn my eye just enough to see a figure creeping out towards me from the doorway. But I was just able to turn enough to see this nightmarish figure. And at first it started small, where I see it's crawling onto the wall next to my room, and it pulls itself out as if it was wedged between that open space. But as it slowly pulls out towards me, it gets bigger and bigger, and the light, it was getting redder and redder, where I can only see the contrast between the black and the red of everything. And the figure was reaching out, overpowering the room as it hunches over the roof, where I can truly see it in my front eye view. I see its face, its red, glowing eyes, and its impossible smile, and its grotesque, realistic human-like teeth that looks at me. And all I could hear during those times was the beat of my own heart getting louder and louder and louder as it starts to reach out towards me. And I would try to close my eyes so I could stop staring at this thing. But each time I close my eyes, there's like this sing inside my own eyelids telling me, you can't wake up. You can't wake up. Are you sure you're dreaming? Are you sure you're dreaming? And I see it. I can't stop looking at it anymore. And even though this overpowering force was looking at me, there was also this overwhelming silence. That as if there was no sign of life from this beast. I was so afraid. And I wanted to wake up so bad. And yet, the strangest thing happened. That helplessness, that dread, turned into rage. I started to yell at it. Not the kind of fearful scream. I yelled it from all the rage and hatred I felt for this one thing that didn't even exist. But everything I felt and said felt like primal rage, and that I had meant, and that everything that I have ever said before was a lie compared to what I said to that thing. And then I managed to wake up. It was a while. It took a while for me to sleep normally again after that one. Perhaps that was the right motivation I needed to fix my sleeping problems. Sleep paralysis are a reflection of the things we see, whether it's through religious significance, which is why we call sleep paralysis figures sleep paralysis demons, or maybe it was something I seen in some kind of media form. And yet that thing I saw, I couldn't possibly create that thing from my own mind. So perhaps the things I saw was a personification of my own rage, something deep within my subconsciousness that is formed by everything that I've ever learned or seen. So would I say this film gave me closure? Maybe. If anything, it made me realize the importance of sleep. All these people I've interviewed, they know they want to get better. They know they have to get better because sleeping is an important part of our health. And yet something that everyone forgets. I don't know whether I'll find any real meaning to why I had experienced that sleep. But I do know the importance of getting a good night rest.